The inaugural SA20 tournament will get underway in January next year as South Africa makes a third attempt at getting a T20 league off the ground. Before that, though, players have to be allocated teams, and that will happen by the way of an auction taking place at the Cape Town International Convention Centre today. Now, our reporter Benjamin Leshoro is in the mother city today to keep a close eye on the proceedings for us. Morning, Benjamin. Do we have an idea of how things will go today?
Good morning to me. Good morning to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Well, you're quite right. We are in Cape Town this morning, and this is ahead of the player auction taking place, the SA20 player auction taking place here at the Cape Town International Convention Centre, just behind me here. Well, it's not quite as busy yet, and this is because the event itself is only taking place at around 2 p.m. today, and will go into the early evening, the auction itself. But what I'm told is that the guests, the dignitaries, will start arriving at around 10:30, 11 this morning. So we're expecting some movement around 10 o'clock this morning. That's when we'll be able to see who's here, who's not here, in terms of the directors, in terms of the commissioners. In fact, we're expecting to speak to Graham Smith a little bit later, who is the commissioner of this SA20. Perhaps we'll get to see some of the players that will be auctioned here, perhaps not. We'll see as the day goes. But what will happen is a straightforward auction for players with bids starting from base prices. There's base prices, I'll tell you about them in just a moment, but there's a total of 316 players that will be on auction here today. 316 players from all over the world. Not all of them will be allocated teams. Not all of them will get to have teams, because some of them will simply remain unsold or go unsold, because there's only a limited number of spots available in the 6 teams that will be taking part in the SA20 that is taking place in January and February next year. So 159 of that 316 has to be players from South Africa. So that's a huge chunk, and Graham Smith did allude to the fact that they need to get South African players out there for the world to see. So that's why you see such a huge contingent of South African players taking part in this inaugural event. And they also want to get young players, those who are not yet internationals, those who are not yet pro tiers, to be in that tournament, that are in franchise cricket, a whole lot of them. So the next highest number will be from England, and that's 52 players coming from England that will be taking part in the auction, at least, not necessarily the tournament itself. So they are up for sale, so to speak. It's always so weird to be speaking of people as up for sale, but that is the nature of the auction. By the way, it is a model of allocating players to teams, or teams for players, that has been taken directly from the IPL, the Indian Premier League, that takes place yearly around about March, April, May. That is a huge money-spinning tournament out in India. So, who are these teams that will be taking part? The Joburg Super Kings, Durban Super Giants, Sunrisers Eastern Cape, Mumbai Indians Cape Town, Pretoria Capitals, Paarl Royals. So these are the 6 teams that will be taking place. So the tournament will obviously be taking place across the country in those different cities that those teams belong to. The squads, a total number of 17 players per team. This is why I mentioned that there's a limited number of spots that can be taken up by the players. So you can imagine 316 players fighting for 17 spots in 6 teams. So a whole lot of them will go unsold here today. Of those 17 players per team, 10 must be from South Africa, with just 7 of the overseas contingent in the starting lineup itself. So it's a lot of intricate numbers that have to be crunched here by teams that are going to be bidding for players. The starting 11 on any given day, 7 players must be South African and 4 overseas players, and 23 players have already been pre-auctioned. I'll tell you about them in just a bit. 23 players have already been snapped up. So that means they're not available. But also it has a huge impact on the team budget. Speaking of the team budget, every team of those 6 have only a budget of $2 million US. So that's about 34 million rand here in South Africa. That is the budget. You cannot go beyond that in as far as bidding for players is concerned. And the base prices, I spoke about them a little bit earlier. You've got 175,000 rand base prices for young players that perhaps not yet internationals, not yet proteas, that are at franchise cricket. So those are the ones that need exposure, so to speak. So their base price will be at around 175,000. 850,000 rand is the base player price for players that are in the Protea setup already. The likes of Andile Peshugwayo will have the base price. The likes of Lungisani Ngiti will have that base price of 850,000 rand. And of course, some of the overseas internationals will go as high as 1.7 million rand as their base price. So essentially that's what we're expecting a little bit later on, to me, as the auction starts, the event itself, at around 2 p.m. and going up until 7 o'clock in the evening. That's what we're told, to me.
I mean, you're talking about a lot of money, and I must say you are correct. The players are up for sale. But before we let you go, just quickly, Benjamin, you talked about that pre-auction. Some of the big names that have already been pre-auctioned so far?
The big stars, and as far as the Proteas are concerned, you'd expect them to be already pre-auction, snapped up at the pre-auction, because teams are thinking, well, I don't want to go to auction having not had this player and he's still available and someone might outbid me. Kagiso Rabada is the name that comes to mind at first. He's already been pre-auctioned. He's not available here today. The likes of Andre Nurkia is not available. Aiden Markram has also been snapped up already by the Eastern Cape team. The likes of Quinton de Kock has already been snapped up already. So those are some of the big players that are not available here today. Faf du Plessis, former Proteas captain, is also not available. But it'll impact the team because remember that $2 million US has already been eaten up by those pre-auction sales. So you cannot, you have to work within your budget as a team with those players that have been pre-auctioned already. That 34 million rand has been already eaten up by the pre-auction sales. So that's what's happening here in Cape Town to me.
All right, Benjamin, let's leave it over there. Benjamin Leshoro out at Cape Town. He is keeping an eye on the proceedings of the SA20 auction that is going to happen just a bit later this afternoon, and we'll definitely keep you up to date with regards to what's happening over there.